So let's open with prayer. Father God, we are so very thankful for Herb's life and for our gift of sharing in it. We know that he is with you. He had Jesus written all over him. And so we just rejoice for him that he is in the presence of his Savior. Lord, we ask that you would get Barb and Mark home safely from Wisconsin, and then that you would just wrap this whole family up really, really tight, and comfort and hope and encouragement, and help them to know that their Asbury Church family are praying for them and here for them and with them in all of this. So Lord, for all the hearts that grieve and hurt this evening, just be present in wonderful ways that offers just that hug that they need, that comfort. And Lord, as we discuss tonight, it is such a hard topic, but we know that you want the very best for us. And sometimes the very best for us is not what we think it is, but what you think it is. So help us to use the knowledge that we're gaining over these last few weeks to really help us make great decisions that give us abundant life in Christ. And then all else will fall into place. And so we lift up this time to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Did we have someone else sneak in? Anybody sneaking around? They asked me to keep track of this stuff, so I'm keeping track of this stuff. Okay. So tonight we're going to share all of the different things about senior living. And you'll probably have a lot of time for question and answer and that sort of thing. But first, this is a slideshow that got lent to me by someone who is a professional in retirement living. And it's just going to help us define all the different things of senior living. Give me just a sec. Okay. So, the ABCs of retirement living. Oh, surely. It has so been one of those days. It's been an entire 3 Mondays stacked into one Wednesday. Oh, that's what. Ta-da! Oh, listen to it all sing to each other. Glory. Hallelujah. So retirement living, of course, is communities that are based on needs for seniors, meeting those needs and creating community. One of the biggest things we found, especially since COVID, folks, is loneliness. People are lonely. And honestly, if your spouse has passed and you're at home wondering what to do, it might behoove you. Who gave us that word? It might behoove you to think about senior living, because it gives you a lot of interaction, it gives you participation, it gives you community. So, or you might be in a spot where you really do need a little more care than you can give yourself at home. May I highly recommend that you look into senior living before you're forced to look into senior living. So, of course, it lists here all the different kinds of senior living, and some of that's on this sheet as well, questions you're going to want to ask, so we'll go through this kind of one at a time. So independent living, as you can see, independent living is what it sounds like. You have a place to live, but quite often you don't have to take care of the lawn, you don't have to clear the snow, you don't have to worry about the siding, you don't have to change the light bulbs. One place I went to said, we even change that little filter in your fridge for you. You just have to tell us when the light goes on your fridge, right? But as you'll see here, some of the things you want to ask in independent living here on your sheet. I make copies of this sheet, stick them somewhere, put them in your purse, in your wallet, take them with you. Hear me when I'm saying take them with you, because I want you to go explore your options. And these are the questions you want to ask. So is there a lump sum buy-in, which means are they going to require, like, I'm just going to throw $100,000 out there to begin with. Everybody's got a different number. You have to go find out the mathematics for yourself at each place. But say your buy-in is $100,000. Many of them If they have a buy-in, they say you're going to get a certain amount of that back whenever you need to move on to, say, assisted living or memory care or long-term care. So you want to know how much of that will come back to you to help pay for further care with either that group or another group. What can you put towards other types of care? What is the rental agreement with or without a buy-in? Folks, you want to print out detailed rental agreement that lists everything from we come in and do the housekeeping for you every other week or not. Do you have meals included or not? You want to know every little penny that your money is going towards. Do they pay the property taxes? Do you have to have property insurance? These are things you want to ask. One of the places I talked to recently, they cover everything apart from your electricity and your cell phone and your renter's insurance. Everything else is built into what they're doing for you. So ask. Here's another interesting question. Is there an extra charge for double occupancy? Some of them charge a base price for one person, and if you're still married and wanting to live together in independent living, they add more money on because you actually want to spend time with your spouse, right? So what? You actually want to be in the same house together, supposedly. So, but independent is what it sounds like. A lot of them will give you maybe a button for a call if you need help. Some of them don't even have the button. You're basically paying rent and you're on your own. You drive your own car, you go to the store by yourself, you get to the doctor by yourself. You are independent. It's a lot of them are like any apartment rental community, but you maybe have the hairdresser on site, you also have some physical therapy on site, you have your activities on site, and say maybe your meals that come a lot of them give you like a meal plan for the month. So just do your homework. You might ask them if it should come to it, what can they provide beyond independent living? Some of these places, they are independent living, but then they recommend certain nursing groups or whatever to come in if you should need extra help. But you're going to pay a separate bill to the nursing folks when they come in to see you in independent living. It's just like being at home and having nursing care, in-home nursing care, okay? And I want you to be very aware, when we looked into it for my mom, in-home nursing care was twice the price of assisted living. Double. So when everybody's like, well, I'm just gonna have them come in for a couple hours and it'll be fine. If you need nursing care, you need someone who's available 24/7. You really want to think about that. And when you have someone in home 24/7, they want your arm, your leg, and the other arm. It's expensive. So, and you want to make sure that you talk to your Medicare person. Remember, because we had the Medicare people in, Medicaid, what are they going to cover of this? Because the different Medicare plans have different what word am I looking for? Different levels of care that they will provide. So you want to be sure that depending upon your health, you're talking to your Medicare and Medicaid people and finding out exactly what is covered under your Medicare plan, right? So it takes a lot of thought, a lot of pulling this stuff together. So this is a little bit more about, independent living. It's all out there. If you want rent only and very minimal rent only and you want to be paying all the extra bills yourself, you've got that. There's lots of them that, like I said, that one place that they cover everything. They do snow removal, they mow your lawn, they clean your house, and it's all included apart from your electric, your cell phone, and your renter's insurance. So again, just tour around. Once again, we've got some brochures from a few places back there, and they're everywhere right now, so you can go in and make an appointment with anybody you want to. And those aren't necessarily just the places I recommend, they're just the people who could get their stuff to us in a timely manner for this. So and when you go online and it says go to a place for mom or go to this place or that, don't. All you're doing is adding a whole bunch of garbage emails to your email account. And some of them charge for you to see their information. Your best bet is to Google Senior Living Wichita and pull up the map, and it'll show you what's in your area if you want to stay in a certain area, and then call those places directly yourself. Do not go to a third party online when you're looking, because they make it harder than it needs to be, and you don't always get accurate information from them, okay? So, assisted living is what it sounds like. You're living with assistance. There's various levels of assistance, and some places charge, again, a flat rate. Most of them do. They're going to charge you a flat rate, and then they're going to add money on for every tier you go up. So say you go in and all you need is really, like when my mom first went in, she was able to drive for a little bit of it. We were able to drive and take her to the hairdresser, take her out for coffee, take her out for lunch or dinner, right? So she was still very able to get around, but she really needed help remembering what pills to take and when, and just having a nurse on hand just in case, right? Just in case. She had fallen backwards in our garage, broke her kneecap, had 3 brain bleeds. We needed someone to keep an eye on her so that if she did fall, if she needed extra help, she had someone there. So she was kind of on the basic tier. As she got worse, they add more money to your bill. If they need assistance going to the bathroom, if you need assistance showering, dressing, if you need assistance for this or that. And so if you have long-term care insurance, it can kick in at the assisted living level. There are 2 ways to do this. One, you have dementia and you are mentally incapacitated. Your long-term care insurance immediately kicks in after everybody has some prepay level, like my mom's was 180 days. So we had to pay for the first 6 months. But after that, her long-term care insurance kicked in. And thankfully, her long-term care insurance kicked in for the rest of her life. Some of them now, these days, are limited. They kick in for the next 5 years, or they kick in up to X amount of dollars, or whatever. So pay real close attention to your long-term care plan and what it takes to receive the long-term care insurance. The second way to qualify for that, again, after your 180 days or whatever your plan is that they usually have 5 out of 20 different things. Like you can't really dress yourself, you can't really shower, you can't really take your medicines, you can't take care of yourself in general. My mother had a pride issue. And there was no way she was going to admit that she couldn't do a lot of these things. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, you were so angry when Dad passed so quickly and didn't get to use any of his long-term care insurance that you all have paid into for 30 years. I said, choke it down, make it sound like you're worse than you are, and have them start paying half of your bill. Seriously, this is your money. You have been paying into this situation for years, decades. You have to swallow your pride and be honest with them for your long-term care insurance to kick in. Sorry, I'm being super blunt tonight, but folks, it's your money. When we talk about all of these situations, this is your hard-earned money, your taxes, your Social Security, right? Whatever you have at this point. If you were going to go out to the store and buy something, you look for what exactly you want, the best quality you can afford, right? Blah, 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 blah. This is the exact same idea. Ask hard questions of people. Get serious with them. If they do not want to cough up answers to questions on this sheet, think seriously about whether you want to deal with them. Because you want transparent, honest care up front. So some of the assisted living questions that I have on here. What exactly is included in the monthly cost? Like we said, there's different tiers, different levels. Some places have a meal plan that's extra. Some places include 3 meals a day, right? Find stuff like that out. Is there an extra charge for double occupancy? Independent living and assisted living are the only living situations that offer double occupancy, where the spouse can live with the other, husband and wife, wife and husband, however you're doing that. So that's independent living and assisted living. And again, in assisted living, sometimes they have a flat rate for the first and they add more money for the second. Some of them include it. You want to ask that question. Ask about meals. Ask what the upcharges are. And this is a big question. Once I have spent down all my money, right? We've talked about spending down. Say you've put in a buy-in of $100,000. You've been paying $2,000 rent in independent living for a couple of years. You're moving into assisted living and you are coming to the end of your funds. And you've spent down everything, and so you're going to try and go on Medicare with Medicaid. Some places don't take Medicaid. Some places don't play ball. And if they're not willing, again, to answer that question up front, that means they probably aren't going to take Medicaid, and you're going to end up having to pay for movers and moving yourself across town to somebody who takes Medicaid. So you may want to move into a situation where they will already take Medicaid once you get to that point, so you don't have to keep moving all over Wichita figuring out what's going to work for you. And I'm going to stop here for a second because I know I've thrown an awful lot about you, an awful lot at you guys. Any questions so far that I can help with?
I'll question it more about one of the bits you had was with Mum was prescriptions, wasn't it? One of the bits that kind of happened.
Here, I'll answer, or you can talk into my earphone.
Hello. I know, this is shocking. So yeah, what I was going to say was through the stages at one of the homes that they went into, they actually had their own company or provider for prescriptions, and we were getting charged more than what you were actually wanted to spend as per se. So even though they say, yeah, we provide whatever prescriptions is, I would recommend within checking of the prices when it comes in on the bill, because there's a lot of stuff that Susie had to check where you could actually get it for quite a bit cheaper. And then obviously then it's just a case of discussions and all that kind of good stuff. So just an added piece to watch out, because we're all on prescriptions, I gather. You know what I mean? So it's a case of, yeah, surprise, huh? So.
If you couldn't hear that, Steve was saying be careful of the prescription plans that some of these places offer. Because they'll say, well, our in-house provider for prescriptions is X. Well, it makes it very easy, but X costs 3 times as much as Dillon's. Right? And Dillon's will still deliver. They just send you the bill instead of sending it to the actual senior residents. So make sure you're looking and figuring out, right, how much your prescriptions are going to cost and what's going to go on with that. There was something else you said in my office that...
Yeah, that was to do with when you were in hospital.
Oh. With all of this, well, I'll do that later. Yeah, okay, that'll come later. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at here is memory care. In memory care, you're going to ask all the questions that you ask for assisted living, but you have 2 other ones that are super important at this point. Is your nursing staff dementia trained? I'm going to just ballpark this and say 75% of memory care units in Wichita do not have a single person on staff who is dementia trained. Not one. It is assisted living behind locked doors, and that is not a great life for your loved one when they have dementia, and dementia covers Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, chemical dementia, you have vascular dementia, there's like 8 different kinds of dementia. You want to be in a unit, and this is the one time where I'm going to push. I went around and I asked these questions a lot of places, and the only place I found that had dementia-trained nurses, at least one, if not 2 or 3 on staff, on shift at any given time, was Catholic Care at 45th and Woodlawn. Catholic Care is not run by Via Christi Ascension. It is run by the diocese still. They were cheaper than any place, and they had better trained nurses than any place. And their nursing turnover was just like anybody else's, because during COVID, nurses got so burned out they were turning over left, right, and center. So you can't always base whether somewhere is good or not on nursing turnover, because in memory care, those nurses go through hell and back. They really do. There came a point where I actually said to them, please do not allow my mother to call me after 7 o'clock at night. She was not herself, and I didn't need to hear it. I was sworn at, I was called things I should never have been called, and it's okay. That is dementia. I didn't hold her responsible for that. I didn't hold Catholic Care responsible because she was asking to call me, and they didn't know she was going to pop off. They had to put it in her notes. You just do what you got to do, folks. That's why sometimes when someone has dementia, you also shouldn't keep them at home. They can get violent. They can not be themselves. And it doesn't happen with every form of dementia. So I don't want anybody to think, oh my gosh, I don't want to go down that road. Because you may not. You may not go down that road. But if it gets to that point, your loved one, as they were, would never want to see them putting you through that. And God doesn't expect you to go through that. And that's why you go to a memory care unit and you ask, do you have anyone on staff who's dementia trained? And for each shift, how many of those people are there? Because that's going to give you the best care, the best peace of mind. And they weren't perfect. Folks, no, there is not, we're all looking for paradise. There's not a single senior residence in Wichita that gets it right 100% of the time and is just the most fantastic place to live. They're not. It's like anything. You have to decide that you're going to make the most out of whatever future God has for you at this point. It's hard. It's hard. This is why this session is called Not for the Faint of Heart. Right? Getting older stinks. It's not easy. Your kids start to question you and you think, who are you to question me? Right? You can't do the things you used to do. You can't get around as easily. You're taking way more pain pills than you thought you would, or at least Steve and I are. You know, I mean, you're no, Steve is still 30. Sorry, I forgot. So, but I want to be brutally honest with you, because there's no reason for me to hold back. I am not doing you any favors by keeping any secrets here, right? I'm really not. This is how this works. And you know what I love? God is in the middle of all of it. God is in the middle of all of it. When my mom passed, she refused to allow me to be there. Or at least God didn't allow me to be there, however that worked. But someone had been reading her the Bible. It was open by her bed. They put a flower under her after they'd cleaned her up. She was loved and cared for, and she was prayed out of her facility. They had a rosary, which we're not Catholic, but it didn't matter. One of the sisters prayed over her, and all the nurses gathered around and had a chance to say goodbye. It was fabulous. God was in all of it. So don't, you know, even though it's hard, remember he's still making beautiful things out of what we think is just brutal. Beautiful, beautiful things. So ask when you're in memory care, is anyone on the shift dementia trained, and how many nurses are on each shift, especially during Sundays and holidays. They tend to be low on the ground. Nights sometimes, it can be hard to get people on nights, right? You might ask, how many nurses do you try and have on staff? And what type of nurse, right? Because you have RNs, who are normally the charge nurse, the shift nurse. You have CNAs. You have contract nurses. So some people give better care than others as well, depending upon what type of nurse they are. Get all the details you can, because again, it's your money. Then we come to long-term care. So memory care is considered a form of assisted living. If someone has critical dementia and their body is failing, they might be moved to long-term care. Or if your body is just really super failing, like Herb's a great example. He was in long-term care. He couldn't really swallow anymore. Things just weren't working the way he needed them to when he got out of hospital this last time. He needed long-term care. And that's where it is really 24-hour nursing. There are more nurses usually on staff. You want to ask all these questions that we've asked above here. And, you know, what kind of care are you getting? What kind of medical supplies are you getting? I was so shocked to find out when my mom went on hospice, all of a sudden, all of her briefs, all of her wipes, all of her swabs, all of her medications, everything came straight through Medicare. We didn't pay a dime. And hospice, folks, is not end of life anymore. If you have an extreme disability, say Parkinson's, say cancer, dementia, trying to think of other big things, but if you have something where you're having a hard time taking care of yourself, your family lives out of town, that sort of thing, call in hospice. Some people have hospice for 2 to 3 years. And the hospice will come in, they will assess you, they'll tell you whether they can take you on or not, whether you're that far along or not, how this works. But once you get on hospice, Medicare covers everything. I was like, dang, why didn't we do this like 3 months ago, right? So hospice too, it's important to remember that hospice is no longer the last 2 weeks of your life. And folks, those hospice nurses, dang, they're awesome. Man, they really walk a whole different tightrope than everybody else. I'll be honest with you. They are angels. Oh, here we are in long-term care. Sorry. So in long-term care as well, everything, it's more expensive, but everything is covered. All your meals, this means you're not getting in your car and going anywhere. It's highly likely you also can't get in the car with your kids and go anywhere. It's long-term care. And most people don't stay. You have the odd person say, like over in Presbyterian Manor, we have Mary Alice Stevens, who turned 100 this year. And she's been in long-term care for like the past, I think, 3 years. Highly unlikely, but yeah, she was sitting there today watching a Western on TV. So, you know, she was having a great old time. So some people do stay in long-term care longer than normal. But again, hopefully you have long-term care insurance, and hopefully you've talked to people about whether they take Medicaid as well as Medicare or not. Because we're talking the long, long haul. And folks, all those surgeries, all those medications, all those things you're doing are keeping you alive longer. So saying, oh, well, you know, I remember my mom in the kitchen going, oh, dear God, don't let me be 90. And she was 91 in a few months but when she passed, right? People are living to 100 all the time right now, 90s, 100s, you know. So you want to be planning for the long haul. It may not happen, but you might as well know and plan for it. Well, good grief, Marvin, you're doing great. Speaking of the long haul, go Marvin, go. Sorry, Marvin, I just had to pick on you. I apologize. So the other thing you want to be thinking about that we're going to talk about tonight is skilled nursing, post-acute care. That can be called rehab, physical therapy, short-term care, right? So when my mom fell backwards down the stairs, broke her kneecap, had 3 brain bleeds, that's when this whole journey really kicked in for us. And took her to the hospital, as you do. We get her to the hospital. I have no idea of all the rules. And all of a sudden they're going, well, we have to get her through 3 midnights so that Medicare will kick in and pay for up to 100 days of PT, rehab, all this stuff that we're looking at on the screen. And then a social worker walks in 24 hours before she was supposed to be released and says, so where are you sending your mom? Huh? What do you mean, where am I? Don't you guys make that decision for me? Oh no, there are all these places anywhere in Wichita you can send her, and they're all just as good as each other. We put her in one out in Andover. I'm going to throw this one under the bus because I was mad, and I'm still mad. Life Care of Andover. We took her out there, and within 12 hours, I wanted her back out. And it took me 5 days to get her out because they were getting their Medicare money, and they would not release her to the other facility I wanted her to go to. And while my mom's in there, I'm running all over the place trying to figure out where I do want her to go, because it is up to me. So again, this is why I'm telling you, go to places now. You have your top 3 at least, if not your top 5, because places are filling up, because people are getting older and they're getting crowded. Because if you get into one of the places you like for short-term care and you find out that you need to stay in there for assisted living, say, you're in their system. Or if you're already with someone for independent living or assisted living, you're probably then priority to get one of the spots in their short-term care area. That's why I'm saying think about it all now, because a lot of these places, the Via Christi Ascension Group, they're all connected. Presbyterian Manor, oh, they're not?
No, they are.
Okay, they are, yes. They're all connected. Presbyterian Manor, they have all these different levels of care. Catholic Care, they have all these different levels of care. So once you get in with them, your priority for other things that are available. Say you're living in independent living, you need assisted living, well, you go to the top of the list, of the waiting list, because you're already in their system. So again, these are questions you want to be asking while you're looking at all these places and getting, because then you go in the hospital, everybody's tired, freaked out, and your hair's standing on end, and they're saying, so where do you want to place your loved one, your mom, your dad, whatever? And you have to decide. So pull out your little list that you've put on the questionnaire here out of your wallet and say, well, how about this? Is this place open? No, it's not. Okay, well, then this is my second choice. No, that one's, okay, this is my third. Oh, great, they have a room open. We can get you there tomorrow at 3. And then you're going to fill out a stack of paperwork about this big. Know how to sign as a DPOA signature if you need that. If you're DPOA, there's a different way to sign when you're DPOA, right? Just think ahead to all this stuff. Because, yeah, sometimes they give you even well, Sid will tell you, you walked in one day and said, we're taking Mike this afternoon, and you have no time to think, or, yeah, it's like, oh, great, this afternoon. I'm so glad that I was giving some notice. Yeah, what are you going to do? So you want to know. You want to know where you're going, what you're doing. It's your life. It's your health. You want somewhere that is going to take really great care of you. I've seen other places where when you're in PT and rehab, they kind of just let you linger. Oh, we don't push you too hard, which sounds fabulous at the time, but that means that you're never going to really get on top of it. So they have a better chance of getting you either into their assisted living or their long-term care, because they aren't going to get you back on your feet. Right? I mean, I really hate to sound like all doom and gloom, but there is really a dark side to this whole system. The places that are in it for the money don't care about your health. So you go in and you ask your questions now. You go in and you're informed and you're knowledgeable now. I mean, Steve will tell you, a couple weeks ago, I came home and I said, I have somewhere that will take us when we're 62. That's 5 years from now. He's like, oh, I am so not ready for that yet. And I said, are you kidding me? They're going to mow our lawn. They're going to clear our snow. They're going to do everything for us. And we just get to come and go and travel and still go to work. And he's like, I don't care. You're going to have to give me more time than this. But God forbid, though, if something happens, I already know where I want me to go, and I know where I want Steve to go. Because we've asked our questions, because we've looked around, because we know what has to happen next. Okay? So that's why I know I don't want this to be such a heavy evening, but it kind of really is.
Susan, talk about that signature thing.
Okay, so Carolyn asked me to talk about the DPOA signature. So For example, I know Jan has been put in this position by one of her brothers. If she does not want to get lumped with his financial bill, she needs to sign his name and then her name, his name, comma, her name, and then after her name in big capital letters DPOA.
Which stands for?
Yes.
Durable power of attorney. There are two kinds of durable power of attorney. There's the financial power of attorney and the medical power of attorney. And so you want to be sure that you put their name, your name, DPOA. Then their finances cannot be blown back to you. You're not responsible. So if they're on Medicare or Medicaid, no one can come after you because the bills aren't being paid. Okay?
You can do that at your place of wherever you're, like the nurses, tell them you want the paperwork and it's just a nice little sheet and fill in the blanks and they'll do it right there on the spot.
Make sure you let the nurses and the people helping you fill that in know, because they'll help you and they'll remind you. Okay? But do make sure that you have all that together. If you have a living will, that will be, your living will, your DNR. There's also something out there called a do not hospitalize. At the beginning of 2020, in January of 2020, Mom got pneumonia. And I can't tell you how much I wish I hadn't taken her to the hospital. Number one, if I had any idea COVID was coming, I never, ever, ever would have intervened. Never. Just never. She was sleepy. She wasn't feeling good. She was calm. She was quiet. She would have just drifted off to sleep and gone to the arms of God. I don't know that for a fact, but I had them stick an IV in her arm, give her IV antibiotics. 24 hours later, she was feeling much better, but she was also ripping the IV out of so many places in her body that they had to hide it from her because she was in dementia, right? So after that, I went up to the nurse's station. I said, I do not want my mother to go to the hospital for any reason ever again. We are not going to put her or me through that. And they said, well, we don't like to say this very often, but there is a do not hospitalize order. I thought, folks, you should be broadcasting this from the heights. If you are fed up with being on the treadmill, you have a DNR, you have a living will in place, you can also sign a do not hospitalize. You do not have to keep going back to the hospital every 3 days. You don't. You do not hospitalize. Mom made it through 3 bouts of COVID, 6 bouts of pneumonia in those 3 years between when she went to the hospital in January 2020 and when she actually passed away. I mean, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And they were all on like oral antibiotics, or, a couple of times they're like, she's not even that bad, we're just gonna see how it goes. Okay, great, and she survived. So there, you also have the odd fighter in there, right? But that's fine. God took her when it was time, and it all worked out. And I learned this stuff so I can share it with you. But just remember, you don't have to keep going back and forth. You're bouncing back and forth. Maybe you want to, a lot of you are younger and yeah, you're gonna keep fighting, and that's fabulous. But as you hit your 80s or your 90s, just remember you don't have to. You can sign that do not hospitalize order, or someone can sign it for you. Make your living will very, very clear. If you have a DNR and you are at home, they tell you to put it on your refrigerator with a magnet, because I promise you, if your loved one can't find it or you are on your own and the paramedics have any doubt, they are gonna crack your chest and they are gonna get you back to life. The other thing that was shocking to me, after the broken kneecap, Mom broke her hip. I go running into the hospital. I'm nose to nose with the surgeon, and I said, I just want you to know, while she's in the operating room, she has a DNR. So if something happens to her, I expect you to let her go. He goes, and just so you know that when they're on the operating table, the DNR comes off the table. So what that means is when they're in an operating room, they do not acknowledge a DNR. And I looked at him and I said, so basically, you're going to make sure she's living, you're going to plug her in, and you're going to make me pull the plug. And he said, yes, I am. And he turned around and walked off. And I thought, I'm going to wring someone's neck. Right? But we need to know these things. If we're not aware, we don't know it's coming. Because I was just like blown away. I mean, I turned around and I just lost it. You know, I couldn't even let my mom see how bad I lost it. Because I thought, you've got to be kidding me. There's got to be a better way than this. But no, if you're in the operating room, they do not acknowledge your DNR. So before the process starts, get that DNR out somewhere where the paramedics can see it so they know to let you go. And then you don't go through all that stuff. So before we move on, any other, let me see, is there anything else? It says here, you know, and living is affordable. So remember, you can figure these things out with your insurances and stuff. And here we have questions. So we'll stop here for just a sec. Does anybody have any questions? And if you could raise your hand, we're going to have you speak into the mic so that people who watch this later can actually hear it. Well, hang on, I've got one. The Hitchcock's down here on the end.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
I'll repeat it. It's okay. You're good.
We know about Medicare and Medicaid. They have their regulations, their government entities. Some of the things you've been telling us, Susan, make me wonder, are there any government entities that watch over this long-term care program that's offered in various forms on various levels by all of these assisted living care homes? Is anybody watching them? In a word, what regulations do they have to stay up with to conduct their business?
Yes. So the question is
Thank you.
anyone regulating all of this long-term care, all this kind of senior living? Yes. That's another great question to ask when you walk into a facility. Are you up on all of your state requirements? It is a state-run thing. And the state goes in and checks them regularly, and they have to be doing certain things according to certain regulations. Just like our preschool is a great example, right? The state comes into our preschool once a month. And we're either getting it right or we're not, or we're correcting a lot of things, and we've only got 30 days to correct them or they can shut us down. The same goes for senior living. The state comes in and keeps checking and regulating these things. Now, some places just try and keep flying under the radar. So again, you want to be very aware of who those places are and ask them, you know, can you show me where you were checked by the state and how you're doing to the state regulations when you go in and talk to them? That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, Regina.
What do you know about the
Oh,
cottage
hang on.
places of the 24/7
Can you ask him?
24/7 homes all around Wichita?
So yes, there is another thing around Wichita that are senior living out of homes that have been rebuilt and restructured to hold anywhere from 6 to 12 is the biggest one I've seen. And all the rooms are rebuilt so that you can live in a home together. They're run just like any other assisted living. They have different stages where they have some homes that in these houses that are remade to be retirement homes, senior living homes, they try and get everybody at the same level of care, at that same stage of life. So that home stays the same. As those people age from assisted living into long-term care, the same people are around, and they just keep the same staff on with them until they pass. Some places then also have a different area where they put the memory care patients if they start getting too out of control, or they're afraid they're gonna, you don't want a silver alert. That's their biggest, one of the reasons why memory care is always locked up isn't because they're afraid people are gonna go off or be weird. They're afraid they're gonna wander off and not be able to find their way back. I mean, that's why you've got to be behind a locked door with dementia, because, you can get lost out there. And Wichita's a big place. And so A lot of these places don't have locked doors, so they'll send you somewhere else if you need dementia care. We looked at some of those for my mom, but it always seemed like whenever we needed to move her, they didn't have the sort of house ready that she really needed to move into. People were either way further gone than she was, or almost too good for her, you know, too much closer to independent living for her. Either of those would have been a super shock to her system. So we didn't use them, but I did look into them, and there are some very good ones out there. There are 3 companies that I know of that convert houses into senior living homes, or cottage. Yep, we have cottage homes. Stuckey is one that does it as well, and there's another one, starts with an H. That might be a great, you might love it. Very rarely in those places can you go in together. They are not normally a double occupancy situation where the spouses get to live together. So I will say that. If you're needing assisted living and your spouse is still in independent living, but you want to be living together, you're going to have to go to one of the senior care homes that takes 2 people into assisted living. And the cottage homes don't normally do that. Does that make sense, Jan? Sorry, love, I'll get to you.
I just want to make a statement. I did the same thing with my mother that you did. I put her in on a Thursday and took her out on a Monday. I told the nurses that she was hard of hearing, and that, you know, when they bring her meal into her, that they would have to let her know the food was there. When I got there Sunday, she had not been fed since Thursday when I dropped her off. My mother was a huge eater. So I took food into her, and Monday morning I went in and took her out. You have got to be on your toes 24/7 in these places.
And it is, folks, again, I want you to be prepared beforehand, because when this hits, you are tired and you are frazzled. You are at a place of exhaustion that's worse than when you had a newborn. And you've got to stay on them. Like Jan's saying, you know, she went in and her mom went in on a Thursday and hadn't been fed by Sunday. She had to take her food in. And then Jan got her out on Monday. And when you get them into these places, it's hard to get out, because the Medicare money is easy money for someone who's more concerned about making money than about your health.
Oh, they threatened me and everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When I said, I am taking my
They'll
medicine.
get in your
And they're
face.
like, no, you can't. I said, excuse
Yes,
me.
yes, you can.
but not only can I, but I am.
Yeah, they get ugly. They get in your face. They make you think you have nowhere to go, that you've done this and this is it. No, yeah, it's not worth it. Yeah, Daryl, give us just a sec to get the mic to you, please, sir. I know this is a real pain for you all who are in here, but when we watch it on the video, then it makes it so much easier.
I had a question. You mentioned the diocese as being pretty cheap, put it that way. I've always heard that they were pretty expensive.
Less expensive. No. They are either on average with other places or less than.
Okay, one more question. In getting into a nursing home or assisted living or all this, would you recommend checking out 3 places, or I don't feel like you have to go all of them?
Yeah.
Is there a place that would recommend certain ones, or?
No, what I do is, I know there are a lot of them out there, but I would plan to visit 7 to 10.
7 to 10?
And pick your top 3 to 5 out of those 7 to 10. So say, for example, and you mentioned Catholic Care. So it's out there on 45th and Woodlawn, and some people just are like, you know, I don't want to live that far away. That's off my list. That's fine. You know, maybe you're like, we've lived on the west side our whole life, or our kids are close to this area of town, so we're going to look at these senior living situations within a 5-mile radius of our kids, right? But folks, there's a lot of these places out there right now, so you can see 7 to 10 fairly easily within a certain radius. And then, you know, just go and make, and You would be really surprised who's expensive and what the average cost is. And that's another reason why I want you to go to 7 to 10. Because you're gonna find out that the average care of senior living in Wichita is way more than you thought it would be.
I have one more question.
Sure.
In getting into a home, you get on a waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understand it right, you're on a waiting list. What happens if you need to go in and you're not up to that point?
Well, and that's why you want to have your top 3.
Yeah.
And so another way you get in quicker is because you are in hospital and you need that care straight from the hospital. And so your senior living residence sends out someone to assess you in the hospital. And their assessment says what kind of level of care you need. And then, you know, they slot you in. So if they have somewhere open, they'll get you in. Some places will put you in like their rehab area for a month, knowing that they're going to move you into their assisted living. But if you're in the hospital, it's a whole different ball game because they're going to assess you and they're going to tell you what they can provide for you. Whereas if you're on a waiting list, again, I know it sounds crazy, guys, but go ahead and go in early too. If you found places you like, get on in there. Because you have so much more access then to all of their facilities for whatever need may happen. For whatever need may happen. Sorry. Yeah. No, yeah. So, you know, my mom was ready to go. My dad was not. And that's the hard part, too. You both got to be ready to go at the same time. But, you know, and just do your homework so that if it is a last-minute decision, because like you say, Daryl, what if you need assisted living and you're on the wait list, but you can't get in, but you need to get in? Well, get on the wait list to your top 3 or 4. Because then whoever comes open first, you go in with them. You're not dropping anybody by saying, we found somewhere, we're getting in. That's fine. Again, you're the consumer here. This is your life, your health. Yeah, you do what you need to do. Hang on, Carolyn, you had...
Oh, I was just saying, we had our moms for 13 years, and I think it is very important that they are not too far away because it gets old to drive there every day and drive back. So it needs to be in your beaten path somewhere.
Yeah.
If you're the one still running around.
Yeah. Carolyn makes a good point. They took care of both their moms for about 13 years, and it's nice to have you close, if you can be close.
If you can.
If you can be close, because that drive does get very long. And I can't drive down 45th Street without choking up yet. Because I drove that road so long for so many years getting to my mom. And, you know, it's just, you're so tired and it's so hard. And so the closer you can be, but again, make sure that it's a place you really want to be too, because again,
We were Catholic here.
yeah, once I could ask those questions of Catholic Care Memory Care, and I knew they were dementia trained, I would have driven an hour each way, right? So, and again, I'm going to push this out there a little bit. You might check in Park City. You might check in Mulvane. You might check in Valley Center. You might check in Hayesville. You might check in Clearwater. You might check some of these smaller towns because they tend to have less turnover of their nurses and cheaper facilities. Now, you may be out there and go, I don't. Colwich has a really nice senior living residence in Colwich. So, you know, think as well a little bit outside of Wichita, or if your kids, you know, my mom and dad spent 50 years in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then they were in Huntsville, Alabama for a little while, and my dad passed away in Alabama. And she came to Wichita because there was nowhere else for her to go, and that was hard because she'd never lived here, you know, she'd never driven here, she'd never, we were in Andover at the time, but consider that there may come a point where the person you know is going to help with your care the most doesn't live here. And you've got to decide how that's going to look and how that's going to work. So Oh, yes. Thanks.
Even to get into assisted living, you have to have a doctor's order. Isn't
Um,
that?
No, the nursing home itself can assess you and bring you into assisted living.
That's changed over the last few years.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a doctor's order so much. Well, usually too, assisted living happens either because you are an independent living and they can move you on in, or the doctor has declared, that they would prefer to have you in assisted living. Yes, sometimes that's the case, but in the hospital, because the doctor's already cared for you and it's usually a post-surgical experience, the doctor will sign off on it in a heartbeat.
But I just couldn't go down tomorrow.
Yeah.
And say, oh,
No.
I'm tired of mowing the grass.
No, what they do, but that's independent living. That's independent living.
But no, for assisted
Yes,
living.
for
no,
assisted
yeah,
living, no. It's not a decision you always make on your
Cheryl
own.
mows anyway. I don't have.
We're gonna get Cheryl little racing stripes on her mower. Yes, you are. I love it. Cheryl's the one mowing the lawn. I love it. I love it. I love it. Steve had one that he's held on for hours. Here, not hours.
So no, it was just a couple of points where Susie had made asking about nurses. One of the things that we kind of look, or more, I won't say we, Susie looked into kind of thing with asking her questions. But one of the bits that cropped up was whether it was a male nurse or a female nurse, because it got to a stage where Susie's mum didn't want a male nurse or whatever in there. So it's a case of if it's in the back of your mind of what to ask, potentially what could go on. It depends obviously who's on shift. What happened on weekend shifts was different from regular week sort of stuff. So it can get harder on that side to get a treatment because they'll dig the heels in, they'll dig their heels in and don't want seen to and don't want to. And then as soon as whoever's visiting, etc., they're all of a sudden not the stress of going to visit. Now you've got to take care of everything that's going on that hasn't been seen to kind of thing. So within that side, I would obviously keep an eye on.
My mom told me one night, Carolyn, there's a guy that pulls my curtain back at night and comes in and checks me at night. What am I going to do? It's the night nurse. And then you think it's all roses. It's not roses. And I would take her out for a ride, and we'd come back under that portico, and she'd say, oh, please don't bring me back here. Yeah. Oh, just breaks your heart. So
You've got to take into consideration, and if you're a man in the room now, remember that there's going to be female nurses on your ward, and if you're a woman here now, there's going to be male nurses on your ward. And they need those male nurses, ladies, because they have guys on the same ward who are twice the weight that you are. So whereas your male nurse might be able to pick you up and literally carry you around, but you have these other guys that are falling, and it takes two of these dudes to pick this guy up. So again, like I was saying, there's nothing about it that's 100% perfect. I'm not trying to paint a picture like, oh, this is fabulous, because no, there's going to come a point where it's probably, like Carolyn said, her mom was like, why does this man keep pulling back my curtain and checking me at night? Well, it's the night nurse, and my mom, I would walk in and she would not have eaten for them. She would not have gotten dressed for them. She would not have gotten her diaper changed for them. I had to go in quite often on a Sunday after church and get my mom all put together, because she was not going to let that dude touch her. And there's not a lot that they can do, because they're willing to help your mom, but your mom's not willing to be helped. So that's something you kind of got to start wrapping your head around now. That's a really good point. So we're going to take just a couple more. No, go ahead, love.
I was just going to say one more piece. I would say where Jan was saying about make sure you pay attention to what's going on. Mm-hmm. When Susie's mom, or my mom, whichever, actually made the change going from assisted living to memory care, when she fell and did a hip, they put her in rehab. We kept paying for her room, but the person that was in charge of the whole facility wanted to give that room to somebody else. So they basically wrote her off to send her to memory care. So we actually had to get rid of her room. We moved everything again up to memory care. And we went in there, put her in, and straight away you could tell within 10 minutes she was nowhere near that stage. But because of the forms and everything else that this person had filled in, she was then transferred with not even being in that level. So then we had to go through another abundance of getting her removed there and into a totally different room. So therefore, she was used to going down this certain corridor, but then she got lost. So it just keeps adding on. So what I would say is, whichever side is it in that's actually taking care, whether it's your partner, husband, wife, kids, what have not, is you have to stay on top. And that's where I know my boundaries, how far I can go, because I've seen Susie when she goes into that state. Because she'll dig her heels in and actually fight and push for whatever's in there. So don't just accept whatever is said as for what it is.
Yeah.
It may not be that far.
Yeah, so what Stephen's saying there is you also have to remember that they may want, my mom was in a bigger room, broke her hip, they put her in this was not Catholic care, by the way. This was Kansas Masonic Home, which is shut now, so I can say that. At Kansas Masonic Home, she had a great room. One room was a sitting room, one room was her bedroom. She loved it. She broke her hip. They put her in their skilled nursing side, for a little bit for physical therapy. And while that's going on, the head of assisted living came to me and said, your mother cannot go back to assisted living. She has to go to memory care. And this is where I learned the difference between dementia-trained nurses and just nursing behind a locked door. Because we said, okay, I guess we've got to do this. We took her up there. And of course, we're paying for movers. Steve and I are taking time out of our jobs. Thank you, Asbury Church, for being so kind and gracious, because I was working here at that time. And we'd have to move her, her little things while they were moving her big things. And it's a nightmare. And so we get her up in memory care and we're like, there is no way she is staying here. So I had to go down, and I actually ended up calling the CEO of Kansas Masonic Home and unloading on his voicemail, and turned around and got her a different room back in assisted living, because that's where she did belong. But as Steve said, because we'd moved her now in that building a couple times, it took her forever to feel comfortable there again, because she was getting lost going to the new room. So fight. Know your loved one, know what's going on, and know the staff there so that you can go in and go, no, I am not taking this. And if you want to keep me here, and you can leave anywhere at any time and move anywhere else you want to. The other place you want to go to does have to send someone in to assess your husband or your wife, your mom or your dad or whatever. But you don't have to stay anywhere. You don't. So
Just remember, if you don't have a place, she's going home with you.
well, yeah, you have to have the next place to go.
Take care of them.
Yeah, if you do want to get them out of there quick, sometimes you have to think about, can I take care of them at home? And that wasn't an option for us. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. That's again why I just want you all to know what you need to know. Ask these questions that you're asking now. You'll see some other little things here that I put on the back page here. Like I say, if you want to stay at home, compare your prices, right? Because 24-hour care for my mom was double what it would be in assisted living. Ask for a printed list of what's included in your costs, not just what your nice, sweet, adorable marketing person makes it sound so fabulous. Get it in writing, because your marketing person can tell you anything they want to get you signed on the dotted line, and if it's not in writing, then oh, I'm so sorry, I must have been mistaken, but you've already signed. So anyway, sorry. Can you tell? I had some moments where I was not very pleased with my experience through all of this.
How do you keep your blood pressure down during all that?
Her husband.
My husband is my rock, and he would make me laugh at times when I thought I was going to wring someone's neck. So yes, I can say that if I hadn't had Steve to walk with me through this, I would be in a home myself by now. Remember that hospice is not just for any end of life anymore. You have a choice about hospitalization. And here are some things you need to know. Caregivers need respite too. There are caregivers support groups, caregivers respite associations. There's all sorts of stuff out there if you're a caregiver. Find it. Use it. You need it. And you are not less than if you have to admit that you can't care for your loved one at home any longer, or to admit that you just need a break. There is no shame or guilt in saying you need a break. Just, there, folks, right? No one said. Now, we're in this, right? When we take vows, we say for better or worse, in sickness and in health. Yes. But you get to say when you're at the end of your limits, because it's better for both of you when you do. Yeah. And there are, I mean, these places are like, please come to us. They're normally free. They're like, we're here for you. Let us help you. Make use of them. That's what they're there for. And there's some of them, there's also like one that I really like, Visiting Angels. And they do charge, but they're usually retired nurses, if I'm not wrong, a lot of times. And so you know you're leaving your loved one with a nurse for a couple hours. You have peace of mind, right? That's worth your money.
Caregiving is not just physical caregiving.
No. Yes, caregiving is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, draining. It is, and it's okay to be honest about that. Some places to find some of this help: your county extension office, the Central Plains Area Agency on Aging. I forgot to add in here, there's like a newsletter that goes out, the aging newsletter. Active Aging. Consolidated Foods, right? If you're trying to hold it together at home and your bills are getting tight, there's a consolidated food program for the elderly. Meals on Wheels, right? Remember that they're available. And there is help with electric bills through a group that's separate from Evergy. Yes, sir.
Regarding Meals on Wheels,
Regarding Meals on Wheels.
we have a friend that we're trying to get set up with Meals on Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke with them earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
They said they are desperately short on money.
Right.
They are not taking any additional
Oh, they're not?
clients. They have a minimum of a 6-month waiting list, and now they have started a waiting list to get on the waiting list.
So Meals on Wheels has a 6-month waiting list because they're desperately short on money. And drivers. Lord, help us.
Yeah, they're in pretty bad shape right now.
Dang, that breaks my heart. Oh, so. Folks, if you have some spare time, start driving. You know, you get a connection with the people you drop your meals off to. Some of them want you to come in and say hi for 2 minutes. Some of them are like, drop my meal off and go away. That's fine. But, you know, Meals on Wheels is something that, yeah, dang. Thank you for letting us know that. I had no idea. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, Susan.
Uh-huh.
So far, we have visited only one place in earnest.
Uh-huh.
They talked to us about signing some kind of, or completing some kind of financial statement.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think I heard was what was said at the last, that they would evaluate that. And the outcome of that is that they can take everything that you sign up for, that you show that you have as an asset, and that they will do that until they've taken the last of it. Then you are eligible to stay at that facility.
On Medicaid. Yes.
On Medicaid, is
Yes.
it?
So we're
Okay.
asking, okay, so when you go into some of these places, they want your financial outlook. And they want you to spend all of that down before Medicaid kicks in, right? So, or anyway, so.
Should we sign at that time or
No,
take
let
it
me
home?
let me tell you a couple other things here. No, you don't want to sign right away.
Right.
Folks, this is why we had our guy on the first night, our estate planning lawyer. If it's in trust, they can't touch the trust. And the trust can be divided in such a way that if you're a married couple, only half of what you own goes with that one person and half goes with the other. So again, say you have $100,000. You can earmark $50,000 for one person and $50,000 for the other. And so that one person gets to keep their $50,000 and the other person can spend that down and then go on Medicaid. So again, talk to an estate planner and get your stuff in order, because if it's in trust, they can't touch it. They can't rearrange the trust. One of the other things I found, one of the places I talked to, and we're going to wrap up here in a minute. I'm sorry I'm keeping you long. One of the places I talked to, so again, let's say your buy-in is $100,000 to independent living. And then let's say, Steve is doing great, and because he normally gets bumped off first, so I'm going to bump me off first. So, Steve is doing great and I'm going downhill rapidly. Well, that place said out of that $100,000, they will give you 80% back towards other levels of care. But what you can do is from the outset with financial planning with them is earmark $40,000 for Steve and $40,000 for me. So he can stay in independent living and keep that $40,000 in his back pocket with them, whereas then I move into memory care, because Lord knows after living with him for 30 years, I might need it. No, so anyway, I go into memory care. Once I blow through that $40,000, they can't touch Steve in independent living. I go on Medicaid, he stays where he is. Talk to them about how they work out your finances with you. Never sign on the bottom line without asking a lot of questions of a lot of people. And never, I would never go to the first place I walk into. I would never walk into the first, never, ever. No offense, but I just wouldn't. I would have to see more places than that. The last thing I have down here is just something I thought of after we'd talked with Annie and Travis, about your end of life planning. Have photos with your life details to assist your family members with the slideshows. When Mom passed, most of her pictures were still in her boxes. Her boxes are still in a storage unit. I had no time to dig through them for her service. I found some pictures that I had on hand and some that she had still had in her drawers and stuff. And this sounds terrible, but you may have some pictures you really want in your slideshow and some you don't. Hide the ones you don't from your kids. Put a little packet with your service details and say, these are slideshow pictures. And write little Post-it notes with them about who's in the picture and what they're about. Your kids will love it. I would have loved it if my mom had done that. And then the best pictures of you are on your slideshow at the end. So get your pictures together, burn the ones you don't want, you're good to go. So if you all have more questions like usual, I'll hang around here for a little bit. If you want to talk amongst yourselves, if I can help, I'm happy to answer what I can. I appreciate your patience. I kept you here long. And I'm going to pray us out as well, since this is the last one, okay? Father God, again, we are so thankful for this time together, that we can laugh together and think together in fellowship. That's one of the beautiful things about church, is that we are here for each other. And so, Lord, as we make these decisions, we ask for very clear wisdom, very clear guidance. Lord, you have always said that you are with us and that you have abundant life for us. And we believe, and we are going to claim that promise now, that it doesn't matter what stage of life we're in, it doesn't matter how well our bodies are working, it doesn't matter how well our minds are working. You are with us and you will give us abundant life. And so we cling to you and we seek that for ourselves and for one another in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.